earlier on. You know that we are living in a very fast-changing world, and the world of sport is obviously has the same strength, and so that's why, as the leaders of our organization, we have to understand what is going on, and we have to adapt to this very fast-moving, fast-changing context and environment. So, one of the, as I mentioned also this morning, we will have our X-Ray Congress in 2020, which will be the next opportunity in our sport to make the changes, and that's why we have to be ready, we have to anticipate, we have to prepare, so that when the time will have come, we are fully ready and prepared. So there are two aspects for this Congress in 2020. First, as I just mentioned, once every 4 years' time, the opportunity to amend, to change our statutes, articles and rules, and also at the same time, if you remember the Article 37, the Congress will decide what visa will propose to the IOC as for the Olympic program in Paris 2024. Just to make it clear again, you have heard me many times to say it, this is a decision from the IOC Executive Board, but obviously based on a proposal from us, from visa, and we will be all along this exercise to build this proposal in connection with the IOC, so that when it comes to the FISA's proposal decision, we are sure that it can be accepted by the IOC. So 2020, very important, these two aspects. We have relaunched what we had in the last 4 years preparing for Tokyo, the two working groups. So don't want to make it to say too much on this. The most important aspect I would like to mention here is that these working groups will work with you, we need your feedback, we need your contribution. So that's why we have started very early. That's why we are working and we will be presenting at as many occasions as we can. We will take any opportunity to share with you the discussions and in both areas, in both dimensions, whereas it is on the governance aspect, the status, or on the rules of racing. You have the composition of the groups, and again, it's very important that you take part all along this exercise. You know this slide again, just to make you again known that we have this countdown. It looks like it's far away, but I can tell you that based on the decision we have to make, it's not too early to really start with this discussion. And actually, you know that we have been discussing with you, and we have been conducting many meetings up to now at different events, but we aim also, if you look at the number of red triangles, to have as many connections with you to present you with the update. If you remember, after 2017 Congress, we launched these 4 projects. 2 have been completed and presented at the Congress last year, but 2 were still on progress this year, and we have been already presenting the discussion and the progress on this project all along the year. And as you can see on the screen, we try to really take all these opportunities to share with the Federation, but I'm conscious that for you, the delegates, you might hear at the first time this element. So some of you will probably get this message many times, but it's important, and you know about communication, it's important that we repeat so that you are all involved. So now Matt will give you a kind of update on this, on the lightweight project and on the para project, and we will then discuss what we call the Olympic strategy, which is obviously one of the most sensitive aspects of our discussions. And for those who were Saturday on the course, the meeting with IOC President Thomas Bach was very, very interesting, and so we would like also to share with you the progress in this strategy. So Matt, if you can make a short update on the two projects.
Thank you, Jean-Christophe. Just to start, at the Congress in Tokyo in February 2017, we announced the creation of the review groups, and we created the mission, whatever, the goals of these two groups, the four groups, but in particular these two, based on the information we had at the time, February 2017. And as you know, we got a bombshell on the 9th of June 2017 when the letter from the IOC announcing their acceptance of our decision on the 2020 Olympic program raised again the question of lightweight rowing. So I would say since the 9th of June 2017, we again went into, I wouldn't say crisis mode, but paying very special attention to the arguments related to lightweight rowing, and so we have to keep that in mind, and that is a bit of the explanation of where we are on this. But first of all, phase one, which ended with the Congress in Sarasota, had these considerations in the first phase, mainly to contribute ideas for the events program, the World Championship events program, and to work on the Olympic qualification system in terms of the lightweights, talk about research or analysis, and then those were reported or part integrated in the parts at the Sarasota Congress in October 2017. The phase two part, which continued for the past 12 months, has these two objectives, but I would say that the second objective here took the focus of all of the work on this project, and that's why, based on the letter, the June 9th letter, we've been focusing entirely on collecting new ideas, new arguments that could possibly contribute to credible negotiations, discussions with the IOC about the lightweight category. These will be on the website, and we will have more time in Berlin to discuss this, so I'm not going to repeat, or I'm not going to mention every slide. We would really appreciate you read them carefully when you see them on the website. But we have been collecting ideas over the past 12 months about this, creating new arguments to justify this separate category, which President Bach called exemption, special exemption for unique exemption, he said exception for rowing, and that really caused, it was an eye-opener for everyone. But anyway, you will find here on this PowerPoint, which we will post, the current ideas that have been collected over the past 12 months, and I will just go slowly through it. We have the ideas, and then there is a kind of SWOT analysis of the different ideas. And this is the status of the project at this point. Restrict height of arm span instead of weight. This doesn't solve it, but introduce preseason measuring of athletes for athlete welfare. Add a long-distance event that possibly lighter athletes would have an advantage. possibly a slog course. We have a lot of ideas that have been contributed. We're just keeping all the ideas still on this PowerPoint. You can see equipment, changing the equipment so that kind of by definition the certain events, the equipment that is required would favor different athletes, different body types of athletes. Lots of ideas. So I'm not going to read each slide, but you can see that quite a lot of work has gone into this, and we really need your feedback, and hopefully we will have the time in Berlin on the 23rd of November to go through this. These are kind of the main questions, but again, hearing the president on Saturday, we really have to keep plugging on this, keep working on this, because he seemed pretty convinced in his mind about this category. So this continues as we develop proposals for your vote in October 2020 about the Olympic program. But this is the status of this project as we sit here. Again, we'll take more time in Berlin to walk through the different proposals and discuss. The second is the para-rowing project.
Matt, given what we heard Thomas say, Thank you. Terry Dillon from Rowing Canada. I guess given what many of us heard Thomas say, and I think you've iterated the sentiment that I think those of us who have been in the room heard, I guess I do stand here myself and get very curious about, should we be asking ourselves a bigger question about, is this really the right focus that we should be placing on our efforts? I know people in the room are thinking what I'm saying, and so it just seems...
Could you wait to the end of the presentation? Because I think we'll address your point.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Jump in the gun. So now the report about the current status of the para-rowing project. Okay. The objectives of the first year of that project, you can see on the screen a lot of work toward the development of the World Championship program, which expanded the number of events significantly, research related to trunk function, the deregulation of the strapping, which made the PR1 races much more robust. We had a very successful para-rowing conference in London in 2017, and of course we developed the Paralympic qualification system, including for the first time continental qualification opportunities to help expand the universality. The second year, leading up till Berlin, we continued the research on the sport classes and the trunk function. We have started and are nearly completed on research related to the para singles and doubles, whether that could, the standard holes regulation could be changed or not. We're carefully studying that. In just a minute, you'll have a little more detail. In additional research areas, there will be a survey on any possible health impacts of 2,000-meter racing. We haven't been made aware of any significant health impacts. And then starting on a para-rowing strategy going forward from 2021 after these main questions are answered. On the research, you'll be able to read this yourself. Continuing to look at the sport classes, how we select the impairments that are included in the two important sport classes, PR1 and PR2. Focus on the trunk function to really understand that related to the assessment that helps us determine whether they are PR1 or PR2. We did testing on athletes in Gavirate at the international regatta there. We have to continue that testing next year at Gavirate because we didn't have enough active volunteers here or at other regattas, the World Cup regattas. So that will continue. On equipment research, we've engaged a third-party independent Naval Engineering Institute to provide us with independent research on our standard hulls. So, is it feasible to consider deregulating the parasingle? Would it affect the hydrodynamic safety and performance? And it's called the Wilson Unit in Southampton, UK, connected to the Southampton Institute, which is has a very high reputation and is working with world sailing quite a bit. The research is looking at a lot of different aspects, creating more stability by moving from the current 120 centimeters spread on the parasingles, and if we are to create the same level of safety, it would have to move to 150, given that the pins are at 120. So that for an Olympic single, the pontoons to provide the same amount of safety would have to move dramatically out. The riggers on a normal single would have to move in from 160 to 120, so new riggers would have to be made. The slide bed would have to be reinforced for all of the extra equipment needed. The stateroom of Olympic single is only 25 centimeters wide, and many of the para seats are 45 centimeters wide, etc., etc. So those are some of the issues. When we started para rowing, we were very clear we wanted it to be about the athletes and not about the equipment. And we did everything we could within reason on the equipment. So this is a serious question, but the safety was number one. If we raise the slide bed on the Olympic single to fit 45 centimeter seat, it would raise the athlete, therefore have to raise the pins above the water and create a totally different angle between the height of the pin, the athlete, and the water. You can see some of the issues. Another key one is the weight. And in fact, the weight of the hull of the standard para single is between 14.6 and 15.6. And the weight of the hull of an Olympic single with riggers of Olympic singles is 14. So in fact, the hull with riggers is, compared to all of the other aspects, not the issue. The pontoons and the seat cause us to have to make the 24 kilo requirement for parasingles. 24, is that right? So again, lots of issues here. We're studying them, the pontoons, the size, the volume, the profile of the pontoons, what do we do about the para doubles, and we're looking at a lot of next steps. But the timeline is to have a really final, solid discussion on many of these aspects, if possible in Berlin, and be sure that, particularly on on equipment, that you know if something is going to change at least 2 years in advance, so that when you make decisions about purchasing equipment, you know what's coming up. So we will lock this down by the time we hit Linz Congress, so you will know if there are any changes to the equipment for para rowing hopefully before you contemplate future purchases. So that's where we are in para rowing. Please allow us to complete the presentation and we'll have time for questions. Now we go to the Olympic strategy and over to JC.
Yes, as I was mentioning earlier on, being an Olympic sport is vital for rowing, and our position in the Olympic movement is really key. And to do so, obviously the Olympic program is one of the most sensitive discussions we can have with the IOC. To start this exercise, you all know that it's not a rowing community exercise only. We don't have to convince ourselves. We have to deal with the external context. So the very first thing and it's obvious to say, but I repeated it, is we need to consider the full IOC context. And you know about that, but 2 minutes just to make it clear. And that's why the IOC launched the Olympic Agenda 2020, and then the project so-called New Norm. It's just because the Olympic Games, also this event is certainly the most successful sport event. This event is at risk in the future. So the IOC has to address these challenges, and for us, sport being part of the program, sport being part of the Olympic movement, we have to understand this big context. And the context is clear. It's about how can we organize an event that is less complex, and that is growing in size. And if you just look at the situation for the bidding, the future bidders, the lack of bidders because the size of the game, because some of the aspects to organize the games is so big that only very few country or city in the world can start the process to bid for Olympic Games. And if you look at the last 10 referendums concerning to possibly host the games, so they asked the population, on the 10 last referendums, 7 have been lost. 7. So it's a key challenging that the IOC has to address. So we really need to have this in mind, that we are being part of this Olympic movement. It's not only about having our discussion among ourselves, but it's also to have a clear view on the overall context. So to come back to the Paris 2024 Olympic program, the IOC has set up a timeline, and again, the final decision, which belongs to the IOC Executive Board, will be taken in December 2020. December 2020. I remember you that for Tokyo, the decision was made in June, the year after the game. So it was made in June 2017. But also, we as FISA, we mentioned that for the teams, it's difficult to lose 1 year, not knowing the future Olympic program in a cycle of 4 years. 1 year was lost. So we asked the IOC to reconsider, to take the decision a little bit earlier, and that's why now it will be on the same year of the Olympics, 2020, and by the end of the year. And they will, of course, evaluate the games to finalize the position. So it's extremely important that by then and we have also started, since we've received this letter, to discuss and to engage a discussion in both dimensions, from one side with the IOC and from the other side with you, the rowing community, so that we can go and move in parallel, but with as many connections as possible.
And looking at this timeline, just to point out, the deadline to submit a proposal for the Paris 2024 program is the end of October 2020. So that's why, and because it's a decision of the Congress, what proposals presented to the IOC, that's why we moved the Extraordinary Congress forward to the middle of October, because it's a vote of the FISA Congress. And if we make a program that requires changes of the rules, for that program to have full credibility, we have to approve the rules that are behind that program. So those are the two reasons why we've advanced everything to take it in October 2020, so that with the program that we submit to the IOC has the full backing of the Congress and the rule book to support it. And then the Executive Board decision will be in December 2020.
from the timeline to the core of the exercise. So, you know, I've shared with you this letter in Sarasota last year. As mentioned, as Matt has already mentioned, we received this letter with a clear message from the IOC that also they have agreed and validated the proposal for the program for Tokyo. They continue to challenge us on the weight category. So, in moving to the core of this exercise, we obviously, and that's why the working group, the project for the lightweight project, had a clear terms of reference in terms of how can we find the best argument, having in mind that the arguments which were totally legitimate and appropriate at the time are no longer valid. So this is clear. And Matt has presented you. We opened the door to this exercise. We get all these ideas, and now we are moving today to the end of this phase of collecting ideas to build this argument. You have had, and if you look at the details, this is the ideas we got. But among these ideas, is there an idea or a proposal that will address the right challenge? And for those, not all of you, but for those who were in the room with IOC President Bach on Saturday, it was clear. And you know, these challenges are not new. What President Bach told you Saturday, it's what the IOC is telling us, and it was clear in the letter in June 2017. But I asked him, because he made us this privilege to visit us, we thought it would have been a great opportunity not to miss, so that you can hear from him, and not from Matt, myself, or the executive committee. We are really challenged because the IOC is challenged. And it's not limited to rowing, but rowing, we have this specificity that is challenged by the IOC. So, having in mind all these aspects, so the challenges, and I think now the message is clear, we have to move from a very defensive position, because up to now and I can tell you, we did everything possible to defend the lightweight in the Olympic program. But it was in a defensive mode. Just to make it clear but if you remember 2017, when we took the decision, it was not moving from 3 events to 2 for the lightweight in Tokyo, but more from 0, what was the initial start of the discussion, to 2. So it was for us a kind of defensive mode. So we have now to move, and I think that it's a key message of today, and for you, the federations, and for our community, we have to think a little bit differently, and I jump into the initial question from Terry. We have to move from this defensive mode to a more proactive strategy. I can tell you that this defensive mode will be very difficult to sustain, but we do have strengths in our sport. We do have, and we have to transfer this threat into an opportunity. It's not easy, but our role as leader of the sport, we have to look at the future, and we have to think about alternative so that we can remain a key sport in the Olympic program. But like I will echo the President Bach, you don't have all each sport doesn't have all its events at Olympic Games. none of the sport have their own events. We do, and that's why we have an Olympic event, but our World Championships are different. I know your argument saying that the fund and the subsidy you will receive by the governments are directly linked with the position in the Olympic Games. We all know that, and that's why it has an impact on our World Championship program. But to come back on the initial exercise, we have to finalize by October 2020 for our Olympic program. It's about this discussion with outside stakeholders. So we are in this exercise. This is not easy, I can tell you, and I can hear from you. But we are also here to listen to your comment. And again, the approach we have been adopting with you is that we share with you all along this journey, and we have now less than 2 years to finalize it. Just to be clear, these challenges are not new. You have heard President Bach, and we have to think about different alternatives, so it's our duty, and it's a duty of the Council to think about any possible alternative, but we have to consider that most likely, it will be difficult to have the lightweight in the future of our Olympic program. And again, we have to discuss it among us. We have to try to be proactive and to see what would be the best solution for our sport, for its future, as we know that what we want is always to try to enlarge the community of the rowers within the world in the different disciplines, and this is why we are leading our sport worldwide. So I heard from you, and it was actually a question that President Bach was asked by the media on Saturday. What about coastal rowing at the Olympic Games? And to be frank with you, there is a long journey to achieve such a goal if we had this goal. But this is an option definitely that we have to consider. And as we are investigating to see whether this option will allow rowing to remain at its level in the Olympic program. This cannot be done overnight, even with the IOC. I can tell you that the process in the IOC is very strict, quite long, but for us, it's definitely an alternative that we have to consider, and we are considering it very seriously. That's why, without having any conclusion on this, we try to have everything ready in case we will move to that option. We'll have to raise the standard of our product, and that's why we are investing a little bit. And this is a decision from the executive committee and from the council to raise the level of our product at the next World Championships in Victoria, Canada, so that at least we have a product to present.
Yeah, just to add to what JC has said, we have to fit in the new norm. We have to accept that we have to fit into an existing venue, not create a new venue that would be expensive and raise the price of the games. Our sport discipline has to be totally credible. In other words, when they cross the finish line, that those are actually the ones who are going to get the medals, and not have protests for 2 hours to try to find out who actually won the coastal event. We have two options: the beach sprint and we call it endurance Endurance Coastal, so we're considering both options as we start to think about this. And another very key one is we have to have a fully credible televisual event, so that it is Olympic standard, drama, action, and entertainment for the television spectators. And that's a little bit more behind the reason to make a full HD television production in Victoria, which will be broadcast on the Olympic Channel and on worldrun.com and on many other channels. So it has a lot of challenges that we have to work out. It needs to be national teams when we consider to get to that point. We'll talk about that more. But we're working on this, and we'll share more about this in Berlin when we have more time.
Well, we have some time now to listen to you and to share if you have feedback or questions. We have 10 minutes before we close the NF meeting. Again, we'll have another opportunity in Berlin, and by then we will continue to work on all these aspects. But this is your chance to contribute.
Thank you, Matt. And apologies if I jumped the gun. I don't think I need to ask the question I asked again, but I think for me, what is both encouraging, and I would encourage us to think even more in this way, is to understand the importance of testing some of the different ideas that we may be able to surface from the community that we have in rowing. So, and I also think that for us to move from just being a little less, having to be a little less reactive. I mean, you talked about, the shock of receiving the communication telling us the concern about lightweights. So in order to think maybe even beyond 2024, sort of think about, what's really the longer term strategy for our sport, and therefore to not be feeling like we have to think of ideas that we can only test between now and 2020, actually to think about ideas that we can test for the next 3-4 years, so that when we get to the next decision point, we feel more confident, robust about being a little further ahead in our own thinking, so that we can make decisions that suit what will need to be true for 2028, and I think where we may really come under pressure for 2032. So I mean, it's more of an ask, and perhaps a recognition of some of what I think many of us have been thinking about. But thank you.
Just to repeat, so we're working on alternatives. It will be your decision in October 2020, but we will be working over the next period to develop both or possibly more alternatives. We have to add value to the Olympic Games. If we propose alternatives, it has to add value and create something more youthful, more entertaining, more interesting than the current setup. So we have to keep that in mind. We're here to add value if we want to stay a leader and proactive in the games. Is there a microphone back there? Oh, running. Patrick with Nerdy.
Patrick from Just a very quick question. Clearly a lot of thinking has been going on, and just to echo Terry's comments in terms of the direction that these are going, we understand the issues and we are supportive. Question is, as we get past through the November meeting, where is this thinking taking place? Is this within the competitive commission? Because I think there's a lot of good ideas in this room. I think we all want to support, the future of rowing in the Olympics, but we also want to have to make sure that we know who's in the middle of the process. So So it's really a question of governance and in terms of how this is all going to move forward post-November.
Well, you have seen the timeline until 2020. The idea is we have a core group, the group project and the FISA staff will be working on the different aspects, but as we come to the contribution from the NF, you have seen we try to take any opportunity for gathering, so it will be during events. At each event, we organize an NF meeting so that you can be updated on the exercise. And obviously, if we come back to the timeline, we'll have the Congress next year also, which will be a key deadline. So we don't have that many occasions to meet with all the delegates, but we try to take any opportunity to share with you and get your contribution.
We take advantage of the Joint Commission's meeting so that we share these big, high-level important projects with all of the Commission members and have their contributions. The Executive Committee is steering it with the contributions on the relevant commissions. The key commissions are fully engaged on creating more detailed proposals that we are presenting at each time we meet with you at the events and the congresses. So that's how it's moving forward. In Canada?
Just a very quick question. You say we in the project group. Can you just remind us who's on the project group? Because I think that would probably help give people contact points as well as the commission members.
JC was referring to the Lightweight Review Project Group, which is the one that's working on that one, and then the Rowing for All Commission, we're working very closely on the coastal one, but including everyone.
And you can imagine that it's one of the key topics of the council, and the council obviously it's one of its duty to work on the strategy and to present to the Congress.
It might be a good idea to think about a project group, though, specifically for the future of the Olympic and Paralympic programs. In that sense, it gives us a little bit of due diligence in front of some of these more challenging decisions.
We have our commissions and the chair of the commission, the member of the council, who are fully involved in that exercise.
Good afternoon, Anthony here from Barbados. Within the atmosphere that I came from, we don't have river, we only have coastal. If we continue on the way we are going, it means that there are select few who would never see the Olympics. And therefore, my appeal would be that somehow, somewhere, we look at seeing if coastal rowing can be advanced into giving us the opportunity, because within the Caribbean, rowing is not really a dominant sport. And therefore, it would make us feel more appealing, more accepted. You said about Germany, discussion in Germany. It's quite expensive traveling from the Caribbean here and keep having to travel to Europe. And therefore we are left out of the discussions that there are to be had. I want to know what can be done to make us feel inclusive and not exclusive, or just coming to the table after the fact.
Sorry, one thing is that all meetings are live on YouTube and recorded on YouTube, so you can follow every governance meeting on YouTube. On the website, contribute all the way along. But one of the key positive points about the coastal rowing is that we lot of our members that are excluded currently with river and lake rowing. So, and for the IOC, there are very limited sports and sport infrastructures on many of the members of the island countries to do the traditional Olympic sports. So it's a very positive point that it is a sport which will directly benefit the islands and bring them more into the Olympic movement, given that there are so few sports that really work on the islands. So it's a really valid point, and it's a positive point in our list of positive points for the IOC, that this brings in more of our members and more of their member countries to be involved and included in the Olympic Games.
Okay, thank you. It's 1:31, so I would like to thank you for your contribution in this National Federation meeting. I wish you a good lunch and a good journey back home. Thank you again for your time, and see you, I hope, in Berlin for the National Federation Conference. Thank you very much and have a good day.